Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hashtag Sports. And Ryan, I don't know about you, but this is my favorite football weekend probably of the whole year. I'm Joe Sharp. Right next to me is Ryan Lasal. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Doing good, man. Looking forward to football Sunday.
Hmm.
Heading out to Buffalo for the game. I was there on Monday and going to be out there, and I'm dragging the two head honchos with me. Mario and Paul will be in attendance at Highmark Stadium. So anyone in hashtag Nation who's going to be heading out to the game, make sure you drop a note either in my DMs or in one of the guys' DMs or something, and make sure you can meet up with us. We're going to be tailgating over at Doc's Lot. It was Drew Gear from the Rock Pile Report and his crew, so we'll be out there early before the game. Anyone coming out, again, make sure you reach out to us. Love to meet some of you guys in person and hang out and have a few brews with some Bills fans before hopefully a dragon slaying on Sunday.
Yeah, there's nothing like Buffalo Bills tailgate. And listen, I've never been with you or Drew from the Rack Pile Report, but I've heard stories. I've heard
Yeah.
stories about how crazy it can get. You might not be jumping through tables, but you're having a good time. So definitely, guys, check that out if you're going to the game. If you're not going to the game, you guys know where to check it out right here, 6 o'clock on Sunday. I'm surprised you got Paul to go out with you, to be honest with you.
I am too. It took some coaxing from both Mario and I, and also some promises of free ride and free drinks to get him
Okay.
out because he doesn't
Okay.
attend football games usual, and then add in the fact that it's going to be sub 60. He's
Right.
definitely shying away from it, but we're getting him out, so we're looking forward to it.
Good. As you guys come in here, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Also, we want to make sure we thank Mr. Rogers Homes for sponsoring Hashtag Sports. Always good to have them as a sponsor. Mr. Rogers Homes, one of the top 1% realtors in Arizona. Please make sure you check out the link in the description below if you're looking for, Ryan was just talking about freezing temperatures. If you're looking to get away for a little bit, if you're looking to have a little fun, check that out. And I'm sure he could hook you up with a nice summer home, or winter home, I should say, in Arizona. All right, so we want to talk about all four of these matchups. Probably spend the majority of the time talking about the matchup we care most about, obviously the Buffalo Bills game against the Kansas City Chiefs. So why don't we just go in order, starting with the first AFC game. And what we're going to do is we'll talk a little bit about the game. And you know how we do things at Razor Sharp Picks. I'm going to give you my pick both straight up and against the spread. Ryan's going to give you his pick both straight up and against the spread. And Ryan's also going to give you some player props, and we'll both decide if we think the over or under will hit. And it should be a good night. It should be a lot of fun. For those anxious for the weekend, I am very anxious for this weekend. So let's get right into it, and we'll start with Houston at Baltimore. Ryan, the first thing I see when I look at both these spreads of the game of the teams that had bye weeks, 9 points, and the San Fran game is 9.5. A lot of points for a divisional weekend game.
Yeah, I mean, you don't typically see, for all intents and purposes, two double-digit dogs in the same divisional weekend. But when you get your first 7 seed to ever
Mm-hmm.
win a playoff game in the NFC, and a team led by a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach, making it into the divisional rounds, winning their division against all odds, crazy things happen. And, couple that with the Ravens, who are as hot as anybody right now,
No.
leads yourselves to, again, what's essentially a double-digit spread for the Ravens. But, we're going to talk about it, but let's not count the Texans out of this one.
No, no, absolutely not. And we saw last weekend, I believe, other than the Lions Rams game, the average spread was actually over 20 points. Did I read that correctly, Ryan? I don't know if you saw that. I think it was over 17 at least, because some of the spreads were pretty big.
Yeah, there were some pretty big spreads. Buffalo was actually the biggest of the weekend last weekend.
Mhm.
I think they were 13.5 is where they went off in that game. But yeah, I
I
mean,
meant
there
I
were
meant the final
some
scores. Like the final scores, none of them were
final scores.
close,
Yeah,
other than
the over hit. I think the over hit on all but two of the games this
Mhm.
weekend. So I mean, definitely a high scoring affair. And again, we're going to get into it as we get on the show. But I love the offenses this week.
Sure.
When we talk about some individual props and some team props, big
Mhm.
fan of the offenses this week. I think they're going to do some big things. We're going to see some high scoring, high flying offenses.
And it's funny that this is the first game we talk about here. Hey Dan, good to see you again, guys. As you roll in here, hit that thumbs up button, share this video because again, we're not just talking about the Bills today. We're going to talk about all four matchups. It's funny as you say that because as I look at these four matchups, and you ask me like which one to me has the highest potential of not hitting the over, I'm actually going to pick the Houston Baltimore game. The only reason why I said that, and you texted me some numbers earlier, and I was looking up some numbers myself. When you look at Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, not as good. And we talk about how he's been on a roll as of late, and the Baltimore Ravens team has been on a roll, and they have been. But they've been on a roll before in these playoffs, and then all of a sudden had a bye week. And I think it was the Titans a few years back who kind of put a stop to them. And we've seen them get upset in the past. As Bills fans, we all remember Teron Johnson. You were at that game when he had that interception. So Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, I kind of compare it to what we're going to see on Sunday with Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills, and Kansas City Chiefs. Can Lamar Jackson kind of silence the critics? Can this be the time that he makes that playoff run? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if not this season, then when? I mean, this is his second straight, or not his second straight, but his second MVP season by all intents and purposes. He's going to win the MVP this year, whether he's deserving or not. I think that's a whole different conversation, but it sounds like he's going to win it. Right. The last time he won it, he went out early in the playoffs. And this year, another indictment. I think there's really two quarterbacks in this playoff, in this divisional round, that you can argue have most to lose, and it's Lamar Jackson and it's Josh Allen, right? Like those are the two quarterbacks that have the most to lose this weekend if they don't deliver a victory, both on their home fields, both against winnable opponents that they've beaten in the past, in the Bills and the Ravens, a team that you really should put away. I mean, you should not let the Texans hang around, because teams like the Texans that hang around make a lot of problems for teams like Baltimore. So Lamar's got a lot to prove, and we'll see how he does. But that's certainly playing into the picks that we're making tonight.
Absolutely, yeah, and going to the Houston side of things, I think I'm over the CJ Stroud's a rookie. I just don't know how he's going to handle this part of my life. Like every time something's been put in that young man's face, every time he's faced adversity of any kind, he seems to surpass our expectations with flying colors. This is a road playoff game. It's going to be his first road playoff game. But I'm not at the point where I'm like, I don't think this young man can do it. Not sure how he's going to handle the cold elements either. He hasn't played too many cold games. But I think that, I'm at the point now where I trust CJ Stroud a little bit more than I did coming into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud's playing with house money right now, right? They weren't supposed to make the playoffs, let alone win their division, get a home playoff game, and then win in the wild card round. So this is all, icing on the cake for DeMeco Ryans and his team, led by dual rookie of the years on both sides of the ball. I mean, they've got everything in place. They're ahead of schedule in their rebuild, at least the way that they're playing right now. There's no reason to go out with any type of stress, any type of pressure for this Texans team. I think that that's going to be a problem for the Ravens, because, again, the Ravens have a lot to prove. They're the number one seed. We've seen what teams do coming out of the bye week in the playoffs, and that's something we'll get into when we give our picks. But, teams coming off the bye aren't great, especially against the spread. And Lamar is not great against the spread. And you get a team that's high-flying, that can make a lot of noise, that can turn games around in one play like the Texans can, and they're playing with house money. That's a dangerous football team to have coming into your building if you're the Ravens.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're Houston, the longer this game stays close, the more and more confidence that team's going to get. And the last thing, like you said, last thing Baltimore wants is to let this Texans team stay in it, because they're that team that they're on house money, and they're okay with upsetting you at your home. They don't mind. Again, my biggest question mark with CJ Stroud would be how he handles the weather. Going to be cold in Baltimore, not last week cold like we saw in some games, right? But it's going to be cold, especially for a guy who plays in a dome his rookie year and was in a warm stadium most of the time in his college career as well. So we'll see how he does. But again, 9 points as you brought up. Lamar Jackson, not great against the spread when he is favored by more than 7 points. More than 7 points, Lamar Jackson's 1-7 against the spread. You look at John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh's record 11-9 in the playoffs, and that includes 1-3 in his last 4. So even for him, I feel like he has something that he has to prove. He just saw his brother win a national championship and potentially, mark his seat for the NFL next season. We don't know about that yet. Now he has to get over that hump once again and say, no, we can make this team great. I still remember Lamar Jackson's first playoff game when he got booed at halftime against the Chargers, and they had to go back to Joe Flacco. So it's not like Lamar Jackson's playing well and the teams are just losing. Like, no, Lamar Jackson is losing these games at sometimes. So, you see that number 9. You look at some of these numbers here. Another number of teams come off by are 32, 41, and 1. We'll talk more about that with the San Fran game as well. But the teams come off by 32, 41, and 1 against the spread. So, like you said, they don't exactly live up to that potential of, oh, they got the bye week. This is going to be a blowout. That time doesn't seem to help a lot of teams. In fact, in some instances, it really hurts them. Throws their timing off, especially if they have that 1 seed locked up before week 18. We saw Lamar Jackson sit week 18. Where's that rust going to come from? And that's why, in my estimation, that's why I think that if there's an under to be hit, I would take the under in this one at 43.5 because I think they're going to start out a little slow. I'll give my picks right now. Let me know in the comment section what your picks are. You could just do straight up. You could do against the spread, whatever you want to do. I see Cameron went with the Texans in an upset. A lot of Bills fans might be saying that because they want that home AFC Championship game, right? Like they want to be home for the AFC Championship game. I like Baltimore in this matchup. I just think that they're too high-powered. I think that even though their timing might be off in the beginning of the game, other than a couple plays, they're not flashy. They're not a team that necessarily an offense that works only on timing. I think Lamar Jackson pulls this one out. I do think it's gonna be close. I just see Baltimore pulling it out at the end. Give me Baltimore to win this game, but give me Houston to cover a 9-point spread. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think this is really the tale of how am I going to bet? Am I going to bet straight up? Am I going to bet against the spread? Not great numbers in the Ravens' favor if you're trying to bet against the spread. 9-point favorites, 9.5-point favorites, depending on what book you're playing off of. Mm-hmm. You gave the stats already. I don't like Lamar and team against the spread at all in this instance. I think that the Texans keep it closer than maybe Ravens fans want to believe or Ravens fans want to have this game. I do think that Baltimore gets things done just because I think that top to bottom, both sides of the football, I think they're just a more talented football team. Yeah. But again, I think straight up, I'm going to take the Ravens against the spread. I'm going to take the points and go with Houston in that instance. And in terms of the over under, I mean, listen, this can be as potentially a high flying game. But anytime you're looking at a game where the over-under has an implied point total for the Ravens of 26, I'm not a huge fan of that because they don't tend to put up that type of scoring output on a regular basis. They're not the Bills. They're not these teams that just put up a ton of points against everybody. So when you are reliant on the Ravens to go out and score 27 points in order to hit the over based on the spread, not really something that I'm a fan of doing. So I would take the under in this game as well. Although, again, I think it could potentially turn into a shootout. I just don't think it's going to get there. Baltimore's defense is too good. And I don't know that the Texans have the ability to keep pace if Baltimore starts to pull away.
Yeah, I would say that my biggest loss in Wild Card Weekend when it came to betting would have been, I didn't bet this, but when asked, I was like, if I were to bet this, I would have bet the Cleveland-Houston under. And that thing got nailed, early on. So, but you spoke on this, and I would agree with you. If I'm looking at just this matchup, and I'm a hardcore betting person, I don't like it. The number's not right for me, if that makes sense. Like I just don't like betting this game with the spread or straight up. So let's look into some of these player props. I had you look into some player props, some that you might like for both Houston and Baltimore, and some team props as well. So like you said, Baltimore's over-under for team is 26.5. What are some other props that you've been looking at this weekend, and where would you tell people to put their money? I can't hear you, Ryan. Ryan, you've gone mute.
I did. I didn't unmute myself.
Yep, there you go.
So each game I went through, I took two player props for each team that I like, and then I have an anytime touchdown play for each team as well. So let's start with Baltimore in this one. Lamar Jackson, interestingly enough, Lamar Jackson's over/under passing yards, 227.5. I'm taking the under. I'm taking the over on this one. So I'm taking Lamar Jackson over 227.5 passing yards. He's done this in 3 of his last 4 games. I think this is a sneaky play because when you think of Lamar Jackson, you don't think of passing, you think of rushing. And I'm actually flipping the script on this one. So I'm going over 227 passing. On the other side, I'm going under 50.5 yards rushing. Again, he's hit the under this season on this line in 9 of his 16 and his last 2. So under 50.5 for Lamar on the ground, over 227.5 through the air. And then for anytime touchdown, taking the Gus bus, man. Gus Edwards. Texans have allowed a rushing touchdown in 10 of their last 12 games. The Gus man is the one that gets things done on the ground for Baltimore. I think he's going to get into the end zone on Sunday. So, again, if you're looking for just a Ravens parlay, Lamar over 227.5 passing, under 50.5 rushing, Gus Edwards anytime touchdown. Switching over on. Sorry, go ahead, Joe. What do you think about that?
I'm just saying I really agree with you on the Gus Edwards pick. I think that he is the workhorse for the Baltimore Ravens backfield, and anytime touchdown. I would even I'd have to look at the odds, and I probably won't bet this, but at the same time there is the first touchdown of the game, and I would look at those odds and see if he's those odds are worth it for him to get that first touchdown, because again I see this Baltimore Ravens off not only just what you talked about there. I see this Baltimore offense starting off a little slower due to the 2 week basically having off. And a good way to get your offense going when the timing's a little off is to get a running game going. So I like that one a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So switching over to the Houston side of things, they're going to play catch up in this game. I think they're going to get down early. I think they're going to have to play catch up. CJ Stroud through the air, 238.5 is his line through the air on FanDuel. I'm taking the over on that. He's only missed this line in 4 games all season this year. So I'm not necessarily scared too much of that Baltimore defense. I think that the Texans are going to have to do enough through the air to get you there on that line. So 238.5 for CJ Stroud. To go with that, his number 1 target, Nico Collins, 80.5 receiving yards. I'm taking the over there too. He's hit this 5 in the 7 games that they have not had Tank Dell. So I think the Stroud and Collins pair is going to come in big in this game for the prop bettors. And anytime touchdown, I'm going back to him. Nico Collins, again, he's scored in 5 of 7 without Tank Dell. He's the number 1 receiver in Houston. I don't know if it's going to be he's going to break a big play. I don't know if he's going to catch a slant from the 2-yard line, but I think Nico Collins gets in the end zone on this one. So again, if you're looking for a Houston prop, you're going to go over on Stroud passing 238.5, over on Nico Collins receiving 80.5, and a Nico Collins anytime touchdown gets you in the money this weekend, I think, for that Houston parlay.
I like it. And one thing, as a Bills fan, and I know some Bills fans, if you're bettors, you might do this. I would definitely fade Devin Singletary anytime touchdown this week. I think the strong point of the Baltimore Ravens defense is their front 7. And so that's why I like your over with the CJ Stroud. I like your over with Collins. I think that if Houston's going to put points, it's going to be against a average Baltimore Ravens secondary. So I would fade Devin Singletary, even though we're Bills fans, and he played well last week, and everyone wants him to do well. That's just something I saw, and I was like, I'd stay away from that one.
Yeah, I like that too. I like fading anything Singletary. Prop-wise, I think Baltimore's linebackers are going to do a really good job of shutting him down this week.
Yep. Going to the next game, the other game. This is the Saturday night game. Big game. I'm actually surprised that this game wasn't the Sunday night game. But the Green Bay Packers, who just fresh off their upset, the only road team to win last weekend, going up against the San Francisco 49ers. Again, another 9.5-point spread. So I don't know if this is normal, and Ryan, maybe you know, but it's odd to me that both 1 seeds play on the same day, and it's the earlier day. So they get 13 days rest instead of 14. I don't think it matters, but I just found that kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think ideally for the NFL they would have put the AFC games on Saturday and the NFC games on Sunday. I think that would have
Yes,
been their ideal solution. But as soon as they pushed that
the
Bills
Bills
game
game.
from
Mhm.
Sunday to Monday, I don't think there was any chance that they were going to line things up on Saturday for the AFC. And at the end of the day, that Allen Mahomes matchup is the premium game of
Right.
the divisional weekend. So that was going to be a primetime game. It just mattered
Yeah.
whether it was a Saturday or Sunday. So as soon as Texans won, and you
Mhm.
knew that the matchup was going to be Allen Mahomes, assuming or Mahomes. It would have been it would have been either Allen Mahomes or Mahomes. Um, I think I'm sorry, the Sunday night game would have been either Allen Mahomes or it would have been Lamar and
Lamar.
Pittsburgh. Would have been
Right.
the two
Correct.
potential matchups. So I think that was just kind of sealed the fate. So yeah, it's interesting that they didn't put the Packers Niners on Sunday because I think they wanted to.
Mhm.
But that West Coast team is always going to draw that late slot because they're going to make sure
Right.
that folks have an opportunity to watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we talk in this game, Green Bay, kind of playing with house money themselves, right? They snuck in as a 7th seed. Not only were they the only away team to win last weekend, also the first 7th seed to come away with victory as well. So that's kind of a big thing. Again, I think about San Fran, and I feel like San Fran's offense is more an offense that relies on timing than a Baltimore offense. And I think that might lead to some trouble in this game. And we've seen this season, if you watch San Fran, I have a couple friends who are Niners fans, so I've seen them a lot this season. Brock Purdy isn't Brock Purdy can get razzled, right? He can get rattled. The games they lost, he had some poor games in there. So if things are not going his way early, and maybe Green Bay gets up early, we could see the wheels kind of unravel, in my opinion, and Green Bay kind of do what they did against Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Green Bay. I mean, the first 7 seed since
Mm-hmm.
the playoffs expanded to actually win a game in the wild card round.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Love, you can make the argument he's been the best quarterback in the NFL since Thanksgiving. He's
Yep.
just on fire right now, and he's proven all the doubters wrong. Aaron Jones, hot in his last 4 straight. He's had a great game on the great ground game. He's been bringing a lot to the table that end. Then you look on the other side of things. 49ers, probably the most complete football team left in the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs at this point, led by Brock Purdy, who doesn't make a ton of mistakes. He can get frazzled. They can get to him. They can get in his head. But you also have Superman in the backfield with him, Christian McCaffrey.
Right.
Packers are still the youngest team in the playoffs as well, so let's not
Mm-hmm.
forget about that. They don't have very much playoff experience at all, and all of that I think comes into play on Sunday as we get into our picks.
Yeah, and I think that's very significant when we talk about the youngest team left in the playoffs. I also think about the coaching matchup, right? We've seen the Packers coach his teams up. And, what first 2 seasons, both his teams went to the NFC Championship game. Now, obviously, that was with Aaron Rodgers, but he knows what it takes to win those type of games. Shanahan, obviously, I think the biggest question mark on Shanahan is, can he get over the hump and finally get this team that has been favored, it seems like the past couple of years, to make it to the Super Bowl in the playoffs, finally get them to the playoffs, because we all remember what happened last year with the Niners. They lost, I think, 18 quarterbacks while they were making their playoff push, something like that. Christian McCaffrey trying to throw a pass against the Eagles. Like, it was just a mess
Yeah.
over there. So hopefully for them, Brock Purdy is the answer. Again, we went over some of the stats earlier about the spread, and I'll go over them again real quick. These numbers against the spread, teams on bye in the playoffs, coming off bye 32, 41, and 1, coming off a bye week. So that does not favor the spread. Another thing I wanted to make mention to, and maybe I should mention it during the last game we talked about, and I kind of did. Like, there were a lot of blowouts last week. I don't think the NFL wants another weekend with a whole bunch of blowouts. You know what I mean? I think the NFL wants to try to keep these games close. We see who's officiating some of these games, and we'll get into that, especially with the Chiefs Bills game and the history of that. But I think this game's going to be close. I do expect this game to go over the number. Give me a second here. I'll pull that up real quick. The over is 50 and a half. I think that's a lot of points, but I think these two teams can definitely put that up. I think that the closer this game is, that favors Green Bay. I think that San Fran is the type of team that either, we see all season, they get up early on a team and they have a big lead, and then they just coast. Or when they're in tight games, they tend to kind of let teams hang around that maybe shouldn't. I'm speaking of that Arizona game late in the year. They ended up winning that one by 10, but going into that fourth quarter, it was like, wait a second, Arizona, here we are. I think that going into the fourth quarter, this game might be a 7-8 point game, but I do see San Fran kind of pulling away at that point. So give me San Fran to win this game. Give me San Fran to buck the trend we just talked about. Again, I think this offense, when on time, is just unbelievable. And like you said, the most complete team left in the playoffs. Give me 49ers to win this game, and the 49ers to beat a 9.5 point spread.
Yeah, I mean, we're on the same page on this one. I think there's a couple things that come into play. This game is going to come down to, for the Packers, can they win on the ground, and can they force the 49ers to throw the football, and can they force Brock Purdy to try and win that football game for them? If they can do both of those things, I really like the Packers in this game. Yeah. I just don't see how it happens. I don't see how they wind up turning this into a game unless Brock Purdy's going to make a mistake early. I think this is going to be a really tough game for the Packers. I think this is going to be a shootout. I think both teams defensively are beaten up enough, and both teams have had points hung on them. The interesting thing, let's start thinking about the 49ers. Their two big victories so far this year have been against the Eagles and the Cowboys. Those victories don't look great anymore. And the last heavyweight bout that they had was against the Ravens, and they got dog walked, right? So the 49ers, I think there's a lot of questions. How good are they really? But I think there's more questions about the Packers. How good are they? I love the over on this. I think this is going to be an absolute shootout on both sides of the football. So give me, for sure, the over on the 50.5. And then I'll take the same thing in terms of the win. Straight up, give me the Niners, and I'm going to give the points, and I'm still going to take the Niners minus 9.5. I think it's going to be a double-digit victory, 2-possession football game. Packers might get, kind of a late touchdown to make it, pull it within, 7 or something like that. And I think the Niners are going to go down the field, kick a field goal, put a dagger in things, and that's going to be all she wrote. So give me the Niners and give me the points, 9.5. I'll take both and take the Niners on both sides of this thing.
Absolutely. And since it's going to be an offensive shootout, again, we look at player props, right? And I think that when you look at these player props, I think that you have a lot of overs potentially hitting in this matchup. So go ahead, Ryan. What do you have for us with the props?
Yeah, and just as you say that, I'm going to start with an under. I'm going to take Brock Purdy under 263.5. 2 reasons. One, I just think that's a high line for Brock Purdy. He's missed this in 3 straight games. I think they're going to try and control the game on the ground, maybe look for a defensive touchdown coming from the 49ers. Jordan Love making a mistake somewhere in that line. I just don't think that they're going to put Brock Purdy in a situation where he's going to have to throw the ball enough to get over 263.5. So Brock Purdy under 263 yards passing in that game. Now, how do they get their points? Well, we talk about the guy that everyone runs their offense through when he's on their football team. That's Christian McCaffrey. I'm taking him over 126.5 rushing and receiving yards. So over 126.5 rushing and receiving. He's hit this in 5 of his last 6. And again, this is a game where you turn to your horse in the divisional round, and Christian McCaffrey is a horse like anyone wants on their football team. Over 126.5 yards rushing. Couple that with a Christian McCaffrey anytime touchdown. He scored in 13 of his 16 games that he's played this year. I think he's going to get into the end zone either through the air or on the ground. That's the beauty of an anytime touchdown. Doesn't matter how it comes, as long as he's the one hanging onto the football as he crosses the goal line. So again, that San Francisco parlay, give me Brock Purdy under 263.5 passing, Christian McCaffrey over 126.5 rushing and receiving, and a Christian McCaffrey anytime touchdown to take you into the money on Saturday night.
Now, would you squeeze in there, and again, I know the odds change for this, is there potential for McCaffrey to have 2 touchdowns, which would be much better odds, obviously?
Yeah, it would be huge odds. I mean, I think when you look at all of the weapons that San Francisco has, I think it's tough to count on 2+ touchdowns. From a guy like Christian McCaffrey, you've got weapons, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle. I think any of those guys definitely can get into the end zone. If they get tight, I definitely can see them handing the ball to Christian McCaffrey. Here's what I would do, here's what I probably will do. I will put a Christian McCaffrey anytime touchdown. If he gets one early, I'm going to hop on the live on a live bet, and I'm going to throw some money at him getting 2+ if he gets one early. So I'll take the early parlay before the game, before kickoff, and just give him one. If he gets one in the first quarter, maybe the first drive, I'm going to go onto that live play and throw some cash down on him getting into the end zone again.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I like it. And how about for the Packers?
Yeah, so for the Packers, again, kind of the same situation as we've got in the game with Houston. I think they're going to throw the ball a lot. They're going to try and play catch up. Jordan Love, again, arguably the best quarterback in the NFL since Thanksgiving. I'm taking him over. I think they're doing him a disservice. This is free money. Over 236.5 is his line for passing in this game. I think they're overhyping the San Francisco defense. I think they're underhyping what Jordan Love can do. So over 236.5. He's hit this in 8 of his last 10 football games. So he's definitely able to get there. Aaron Jones on the ground, I'm taking him over 68.5 rushing. So again, Aaron Jones over 68.5. He's hit this in 4 straight. I think he gets it done on the ground. He's just been a workhorse for them the last couple of games. And then Jordan Love, 2+ touchdowns. He's hit this in 9 of his last 10. I'm giving him 2+ touchdowns through the air in this game. I'm not sure who the receiving end of things is going to be, whether it's Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, who's back. However it comes, Jordan Love, 2+ passing touchdowns, again, 9 of his last 10. So that Packers parlay going to be Jordan Love over 236.5. Aaron Jones over 68.5 yards rushing, and Jordan Love 2+ passing touchdowns.
Yeah, I think people forget just how good Aaron Jones actually is, right? My wife had him on her fantasy team this year, and it was just so frustrating because the injuries, and you just don't know how many carries he's going to get all year. He had 3 touchdowns last week. He had 2 throughout the whole regular season. So definitely using him as a workhorse right now. He's healthy, and that means to me he's very dangerous. And I won't be surprised if the Packers try to utilize that ground attack, because the best way to stop a prolific offense, which the Niners have, is to keep him off the field. And so I won't be surprised they run Aaron Jones a lot. I would take the over on the carries as well. I don't know what that bar is set at, but I think that Aaron Jones gets a lot of carries in this game, and I do think he passes, may even get triple digits as far as total yards go in this one. So that's what I like. So yeah, we'll go to the next the Sunday start games, which will start with the Detroit Lions and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This game to me is going to be exciting only because it's in Detroit, and that fan base is going to be rocking just like they were this previous weekend. You saw the raw emotion, got their first playoff win in 32 years. That's amazing, and that's something that us as Bills fans hope to experience maybe this weekend with the Kansas City Chiefs, because it feels like it's been 32 years since we've beaten Kansas City in the playoffs. I mean, there's a long history actually of Kansas City beating us in the playoffs. But in this matchup, the Lions are favored by 6.5. Not crazy about that number. You sent me a text about how Baker Mayfield's 9-3 against the spread this season. And I think people are sleeping on this Tampa Bay team still. I had Tampa beating the Eagles this past week. Now, was that because the Eagles have turned into complete dog water, or is that because Tampa is showing themselves to be a pretty decent team? Because we talked all year long about, man, whoever wins the NFC South is just going to be a sacrifice for Dallas or Philly, until we got to the playoffs and Tampa was on like a 2 or 3 out of 4 game winning streak, and all of a sudden it looked like the tides had turned. My son, I may get no secret, my son who's 5 is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan because they have a pirate ship. So I feel like I have that string pulling at me a little bit. But I do like Detroit in this matchup. Again, it would be something like I had with our first game. I like Detroit in this matchup, but I do like this game to be close. I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa has the lead quite a bit in this game. But I think Jared Goff, I think that this overall team that they have in Detroit, and listen, that boy Hutchins is an absolute beast on defense. I mean, that kid is something else, and he's going to disrupt some things in this game. And so I would take Detroit to win this game. Maybe a lower scoring game. I think that maybe I would. I'm not sure what the over under is. Give me a second. I think
48
I
and a
would
half.
48 and a half. I think I would lean
48
under
and a half. Yeah.
this one as well. Basically, kind of what you said about how the offenses last week. Again, you kind of see offenses sometimes go on this roller coaster ride, especially in the playoffs, where they look great and then all of a sudden they struggle. I don't know. I just see this game being close. I see Tampa potentially having a lead in the fourth quarter, but I see Detroit pulling this game out. Give me Detroit to win this game, but give me Tampa to cover that 6.5 point spread.
Yeah, I think so I'm with you. I think at the end of the day, again, it just comes down to in the divisional round who's the best football team. Sundays happen every week in the NFL, and then you get to the divisional round of the playoffs, and that's where things start to kind of true themselves out, right? The better teams tend to be the ones to walk away with victory. You don't see a lot of upsets, especially touchdown dogs coming from behind, but if there is a dog in this weekend that's gonna do it, it's gonna be Baker 9-3 against the spread when he's a dog this year. Love Baker. He's fighting for his next contract. He's in a contract year. He's ready to go find a permanent home. For quite a while. So I like Baker to put on a show in this game. I think at the end of the day, I think this is going to be one of those games where people look back and say that was a sneaky good football game.
Yeah.
Because of the game that surrounded on this weekend. I think Ravens Texans is going to be a shootout. I think Packers Niners is going to be a slugfest. And I think obviously Bills Chiefs is going to be the heavyweight matchup for the title at the end of the day. This is not a bad, curtain jerk type of match, right? That you're going to see out of this Lions and Bucks game. I think I'm going to take the Lions straight up. I'm going to take the Bucks to cover the spread. So I think the Bucks are going to keep it close. I'm actually going to take the over on this one, 48 and a half. I think when you have these two teams, and these will come out in my player props, these two teams that are really bad against the pass, those teams tend to give up a lot of points one way or the other. But I think both teams are good at finding ways to win. It's just Dan Campbell, he biting kneecaps with that football team. He's better at finding ways to win than I think the Buccaneers are. So I'm going to take the Lions. I'm going to take the Bucks to cover the spread. But I'm also going to take the over on this one. I think they're going to get to 49, 50 points total on this one.
Sure. No, I could see it definitely going that way. And like you said, I know that both these secondaries are not average at best, and so I think that, and you look at the weapons that both teams have, this is the type of game where I think you could see a lot of yak yards, right? Like you see these like slant patterns or these wide receiver screens that then are just gone, and I think about the wide receivers that both teams have, and they'll put on a show. And Amon-Ra St. Brown has been kind of annoyed about the fact, and he's made it clear that he was not a Pro Bowler. He deserves to be a Pro Bowler, and I think he's going to come out and show why in this game. Speaking of players, we could get into the player props here for this matchup. Again, Tampa, Detroit. You have the over. I have the under, but that doesn't mean there can't be a lot of offense without there being points necessarily. And like you said, even though you have the San Fran game being a shootout, you have the under for Brock Purdy. Interested to see what props you like for this matchup.
Yeah, so interestingly, so you got two teams again really bad against the pass. So the Buccaneers are the third worst team in the NFL in terms of passing yards allowed. Fourth worst are the Lions. So these are two teams where I love the quarterback overs in this game. So Goff, I'm going to start with the Lions side of things. Jared Goff over 277.5. It's a big number, but over 277.5. Again, the Bucks are third worst against passing yards allowed, and Goff has missed this in 3 of his last 4. So this is really more of a he-do type of bet for me. It just feels like they're going to get themselves into a shootout. I think Goff's going to be chucking it all over the field. He's got a lot to prove here at home. So Goff over 277.5. That goes along with his number one wide receiver, the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown, over 91.5 yards receiving. He's hit this in 4 of his last 5, and the one that he didn't hit it, he was at 90 yards. So I'm going to give him over 91.5 receiving yards in Amon-Ra St. Brown. And when it comes to these two running backs, you've got Jahmyr Gibbs, you've got David Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
Both may get into the end zone in this instance, but because of how bad the Bucs are against the pass and how good they are against the run, give me Jahmyr Gibbs on the anytime touchdown because he's going to be the one to get it in either through the ground or through the air. And I'll take those odds in that game. So again, if you're looking at a Lions parlay, we're going to go Goff over 277.5. Amon-Ra St. Brown over 91.5, and Jahmyr Gibbs for the anytime touchdown to start things off on Sunday with some cash in your pocket.
Absolutely. No, and going half what you said, I'm not sure about the yards, but I would definitely take St. Brown for an anytime touchdown. Again, I think he could easily hit that 91.5 number. But I could easily see he's the number one target for a reason. If Goff is struggling or not able to find someone, that's where he's going to go to. He's going to go to him, and I think that feeding him the ball, maybe double-digit targets even, and he'll get in the end zone. So, what do you have for Tampa Bay?
Yeah, for Tampa, going back to it, Lions fourth worst in the league against passing when it comes to yardage. So Baker, give me 257.5 over for Baker Mayfield. He's hit this four out of his last 5 games. So again, Baker's got a lot to prove in this divisional round. He's going to try to will this Bucs team to a victory. Not a very well-known guy, Trey Palmer. I'm going to go Trey Palmer on the wide receivers here. Tough to pick a wide receiver over when you're looking at the big dogs for Tampa, but Trey Palmer, over 17.5 is his line. So give me over 17.5 for Trey Palmer. He's hit this in 3 of his last 4. He had that huge touchdown last week to get them into that football game and really kind of create some distance between them and Philadelphia. And then when it comes to anytime touchdowns, I'm going back to the dogs. Big Mike, I'm going to Mike Evans. He has not scored in 3 straight games, but at the end of the day, in the divisional round of the playoffs, you go to your guys. Yeah. Mike Evans has been the guy for a decade in Tampa right now. So again, that Tampa parlay is going to be Baker over 257.5, Trey Palmer over 17.5 yards receiving, and Mike Evans anytime touchdown for the Bucs parlay.
And don't forget, last week Mike Evans dropped one in the end zone. So Mike Evans is the type of guy. It's not like he didn't drop one. And he's not Tooney. You're going to go back to that well, and you're going to have trust in that guy. So I think that Baker is going to lean on him. I like the anytime touchdown right there. But it comes down to what we're all looking forward to: Sunday night football. Like you said, probably the game of the weekend. At least the game most people are looking forward to. For the 3rd time in 4 seasons, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Again, we'll be live right here, #sports at 6 o'clock. Kickoff at 6:30 for this one. Buffalo Bills currently sitting as 3-point favorites in this matchup. And Ryan, this is where people are not going to like me too much. This is when people are going to start questioning maybe if I'm a fan or not. And listen, to me, there is a huge difference between hope and faith and wanting to that I will have on Sunday, and just logic. And you look at this matchup from a logical standpoint, and you look at the history between these two teams. The Bills have not beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs the 2 previous times that they've played. And then that's, you could say, 13 seconds, we were close. Well, close doesn't count in this game. Only one team moves on to the next round, and that in both instances were the Kansas City Chiefs. When Mahomes has played Allen in the playoffs, Mahomes 2, Allen 0. When you look at head coaches, and I know you'll agree with me on this one, Andy Reid is a better head coach than Coach McDermott, right? Better in-game adjustments. They both suck at time management, but other than that, you would take Andy Reid over Coach McDermott. That's not necessarily a knock on McDermott, but you look at what Andy Reid's accomplished, you look at his pedigree, you take it. Another thing you look at the playoffs, better defense goes to the Chiefs. Which quarterback has the better pedigree? You talk about 2-time Super Bowl champion, MVP, you're going Patrick Mahomes. There's so many things leaning towards Kansas City Chiefs that logically, and don't forget how Mahomes has played on the road during the regular season. Yes, his first road game in the playoffs. Logically, if you're betting this game, you're taking the Chiefs. Maybe even straight up, you're taking the Chiefs. But Ryan, I got to tell you something. Right now, we're not using logic. Right now, I am relying on Bills Mafia. You want to speak history? The Bills are 6-0 most recently in history, a streak that started against the Kansas City Chiefs. You want to talk about quarterback pedigree. Listen, there's no way that Eli Manning should have ever beat Tom Brady in 2 Super Bowls. That should have never happened. You want to talk about coaches? There's no way some of these coaches should beat other coaches. And the first one I think of, because I just talked about, is Coughlin versus Belichick. There's no way these things should happen, and yet they happen. At one point, Manning could not beat Brady in the playoffs. But guess what? It happened. And I think that if the Bills, I don't even think this is the best Bills team over this 4-year stretch, but I also don't think this is the best Kansas City Chiefs team over the past 4 years either. If the Bills ever want to get over that hump, this has to be the time to do it. This has to be the time to do it. And you talk about a game where we talked a little bit about this in the Dallas Cowboy game or the Miami Dolphins game at the end of the year, where you have a team that has to win versus a team that wants to win. Well, as Josh Allen spoke about last week, they've had to win for a long time. And as you talked about on this program earlier on this episode, there's no bigger matchup this weekend than for Josh Allen. There's no quarterback that's more on the line than Josh Allen against Patrick Mahomes this weekend. And I think that you look at this Buffalo Bills team, this offense, the way they've been kind of clicking lately. Everyone's looking at the Kansas City Chiefs, at least everyone that I've heard, and saying, oh, they're going to figure out the red zone problems. We saw last week the Dolphins stayed in that game for the longest time. And if Tua could spread the field in negative 28 degrees or whatever, they would have been in that game longer. He was unable to do it. I don't know if the Chiefs are going to fix their red zone problems. And if the Bills hold them to field goals while they're scoring touchdowns, because the Bills were able to get in the end zone last weekend, then the Chiefs are going to have a long day. The spread has only moved up, so that means that the smart money, the betting money, has been on the Buffalo Bills. It started at 2.5, now it's at 3, and that is where my money is going as well. A lot of people talk about how when you're playing a team in the regular season, you beat them, you don't necessarily like seeing them again in the playoffs. But you have to remember, there's still a lot of Chiefs fans. There's still a lot of people around the NFL who, after that game, said, oh, the Bills, with the penalty at the end of the game, they didn't really win that game. The refs won it for them. There's a little bit of a chip on your shoulder when you hear that. No, they won that game, and they're going to win this game too. Give me the Bills to win this game. I'll give you my score prediction on Sunday, but I like the over in this matchup.
Yeah, so you took the over 45.5. I think that's a low over. I think a lot has to do with the fact that it's going to be in the cold. It's going to be in the elements. Game time temperature is going to be somewhere about 20 degrees, somewhere in that range. But I also look at a team in Kansas City who has only scored 30 points this season 3 times. They don't put up points like you're used to seeing a Kansas City or even an Andy Reid football team put up. So they just don't put up the points that they're used to putting up. Buffalo has a lot of injuries on defense, though, so it's going to be interesting to see how that injury report shakes out. Can Terrell Bernard go? Can Rasul Douglas go? There are some guys out there that if they can go, this changes the complexion of what this football game looks like. At the end of the day, I think the Bills get it done. You've been waiting to get Patrick Mahomes on your home field. Everyone has clamored for make Mahomes play a game on the road in the playoffs, right? It's the first time he's going to be on the road. Hostile environment. It's going to be a lot of Bills fans, a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming. A team in Kansas City that just has not looked together over the last, half of the season, really ever since that Bills loss. They just haven't looked like they've been on the same page, as evidenced by that Kadarius Toney misstep against the Buffalo Bills. I just don't. And like you said, it comes down to if not now, when, right? If you're not going to beat them on your home field, when are you planning on beating them? Because they're not necessarily going away when it comes to the AFC West. That division's an absolute disaster. So the Chiefs aren't going anywhere from a record perspective. You're going to get them on your home field. This is arguably the most talented offense that the Bills have had in facing Kansas City, and you've beaten them once this year already. So you're supposed to win this football game, right? I think the Bills do get things done. I think the Bills win. I think the Bills cover. I'm actually going to take the under on this football game because Kansas City does not put up points. I don't think they're going to have to put up points to win. It's an implied point total of 24 for the Bills. I think if the Bills can get to 20, I think that gets things done. So I think it's going to be a fairly low-scoring football game, but I think Buffalo is going to get things done this weekend against Kansas City.
And this is also a game, since it's currently at 3, I could see it landing on the number, right? I could definitely see this be a 3-point game and this one landing straight on the number. Everyone pushes. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. Void that leg in the parlay.
Right, absolutely. Especially if you're on ESPN bets, because apparently they don't pay out if you parlay.
If you push,
parlay
avoid the whole thing.
Avoid ESPN bets at all costs is what I'm hearing. But speaking of betting, here we go. So we're talking about props for this game. You have the under. You like the under. I haven't looked at the prop bets for this game yet, so I'm not sure where I'm going. What have you seen?
Yeah, I'm going to do the Chiefs first because I did some extra picks for the Bills in the prop bet. So on the Chiefs side of the ball first, I would take Rashee Rice over 71.5 receiving. He's been the number 1 receiver for Kansas City for about 7 weeks now, probably 7 or 8 weeks. And in that stretch, he's hit this 5 of his last 7 games. So Rashee Rice over 71.5 yards receiving. But when we talk about the under, Patrick Mahomes, give me under 253.5 yards passing for Patrick Mahomes. He's missed this in 2 of his last 3 football games. I just think that he's going to struggle to get things going through the air. They're going to try and run the football against Buffalo with those linebackers potentially being out or injured. So give me Patrick Mahomes under 253.5 yards passing. And then for that anytime touchdown, give me Isaiah Pacheco. The guy runs like he's angry at the ground. He's just a menace on the ground. I think he's going to get things done in short yardage in the goal line situation. They like him on those little shovel passes. They like him in the wildcat. They like to hand the ball off to him straight. So give me Isaiah Pacheco anytime touchdown. He's scored in 5 straight football games as well. So again, that Chiefs parlay, Rashee Rice over 71.5 yards receiving, Patrick Mahomes under 253.5 yards passing, and give me an Isaiah Pacheco anytime touchdown as he's scored in 5 straight. He's going to make it 6 straight against Buffalo.
And 2 things to say about those. First, remember, in the first game against Kansas City, there was no Pacheco. The Buffalo Bills did not play against Pacheco in that first matchup. That's a whole different element. And if you want fun, and I was watching Cover One's coverage a little bit yesterday, and Greg Thompson did this, and it's kind of funny. So if you quote on Twitter, Isaiah Pacheco runs like, and then just hit enter in the search bar, there's just a whole bunch of stuff that comes up, and it's kind of funny just to scroll through it. But another thing, both Sky Moore and Tooney are both on the injury report. Now, does that mean they're not going? And I don't think Tooney played last week. Whether that was a healthy scratch or an injury-related thing, that's debatable. But so that goes into your Rice over as well. So I do like the Pacheco anytime touchdown. Again, a guy that the Bills did not play the first matchup. And then I do like the Rice over. But you say you had some extra Buffalo Bills ones. I'm excited. What do you have for our Bills?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to start things off on the receiving side of things. Stephon Diggs, I like him for over 5.5 catches in this game. They've been targeting him early and often these last couple games. He's hit this easily in two straight. He was in double-digit receptions over the last couple of games. His over-under only at 5.5, so give me the over on that. I'm smashing that line. Dalton Kincaid, his line is 40.5 yards receiving. I'm going to take the over on that as well. He's hit that in 3 straight. He's become a favorite target of Josh Allen as this offense has started to emerge. So I like his over pretty easily on this one, 40.5 yards receiving. And then let's go to the big guy, Josh Allen. Give me over rushing attempts, 8.5 rushing attempts. He's hit this in 4 of his last 7. The 2 of the 3 that he missed, he was at 8. He had 10 in the last meeting against the Kansas City Chiefs. So Allen over 8.5 rushing attempts. I think that's pretty easy money, especially now that they're starting to use him in short yardage situations on the goal line, things like that. Then let's move to the anytime touchdowns. Josh Allen, anytime touchdown. Remember, he's got to be the guy carrying the ball across the goal line. He's done that in all but 5 games this season. He's got a rushing touchdown in them. I think he's good for one here as well. And then maybe a number that, Vegas is overlooking a little bit because I was surprised to find this guy plus 450 for an anytime touchdown. Give me Dawson Knox to get into the end zone for Buffalo. He's scored in 4 straight playoff games for the Buffalo Bills. He's tied for 3rd most receiving touchdowns for the Buffalo Bills in franchise history. Criminally underrated. Great value at plus 450. for Dawson Knox. So again, we run down those for the Buffalo Bills. Diggs over 5.5 catches. Kincaid over 40.5 yards receiving. Josh Allen over 8.5 yards. I'm sorry, 8.5 rushing attempts. And then give me an Allen and a Knox anytime touchdown. You parlay those all together for Buffalo. Got yourself a really nice plus 6,900 parlay that you're working with. So don't be afraid to throw that one down. Throw a couple bucks on it. Worst case scenario, you're out a couple bucks. Best case scenario, you're going to pay for maybe a Super Bowl ticket for yourself, or at least an AFC Championship game ticket if you want to. So I like that parlay for the Bills. I'll be playing that for sure.
Sure. I do want to take notice to Gary's question here. Does Big Game Gabe show up? Personally, I don't think so. I think with the emergence of Shakir, we saw in the last game that Gabe Davis is kind of a luxury at this point, and maybe a luxury that we don't need. There are plenty of people in my comment section during the game saying this offense looks better without Gabe Davis. Now, if he's healthy, because he's still on the injury report, I want him on the field, but I would not expect him to have 4 touchdowns or even 1 touchdown. Didn't know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I haven't checked it. I can check it right now. I haven't checked to see what his line is in terms of if they're setting any lines for him receiving wise. They're not, because he's not been on the injury report. So there's really no lines to speak of. But I would probably go whatever his lines are going to be, especially receptions. I would probably go the under. I just don't think he's going to be highly targeted. I think they've found 3 guys that they like. That's force feeding Stephon Diggs. And then that's going to be Shakir against that zone, and it's going to be Dalton Kincaid against some type of a mismatch linebacker safety type of situation where he's just in a mismatch and they're going to go to him. And then in the red zone where Gabe Davis had been kind of the guy over the last few years, they've really gone to the tight end. Buffalo Bills, one of the first, I think they were maybe one of the first or the first team to have a passing touchdown to 2 different tight ends in a playoff game in quite a while. So, I just don't see where Davis fits into this new style offense. He blocks really well. So like you said, if he's healthy, he's going to be out there and playing. I just don't want to count on him when my money's on the line for him to have any type of a massive impact on this football game.
Right. No, I completely agree. And don't forget about James Cook out of the backfield too. I think that he catch some balls out of the backfield and really make the Kansas City Chiefs offense kind of have to spread out, because I think that's going to be important with the Chiefs linebackers, try to get them spread out in this game. But Ryan, you gave us 3 parlays for every team, then 5 for Buffalo. Is that correct?
I gave no, it was 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 for the Bills, 3 for everybody else. Yeah.
All right, so that's 24. That's 26 leg parlay, because they're all gonna hit. They're all gonna hit. So get yourself that 26 leg parlay that Vegas won't even let you do. But definitely go to that 26 leg parlay, and you'll have yourself a great night Sunday night, especially after a Buffalo Bills victory. Don't forget, Ryan, Paul, Mario, representing #sports at the game. Ryan, tell them again how they can get a hold of you and where you'll be at.
Yeah, make sure you guys you see my tag right there and on Twitter at Ryan Lasal _RFN. Feel free to drop me a line in my DMs. You certainly know how to get a hold of Mario and Paul if you want to drop them a line as well. Don't hesitate to reach out. But we're going to be partying at Doc's Lot, which is right next to Hammer's Lot on Abbott Road, across from the stadium. We're going to be there with the Rock Power Report Drew Gear. We're going to be cooking up some great grub. Make sure you stop by. Have a drink, shake hands, slap Paul across the face if you've been waiting to do that for the last couple of years. If you want to, you're finally going to see him out in public. So whatever the case, drop us a line. Let us know if you're going to swing by, or just pop in and surprise us and text us while you're standing right there. We'll be at Doc's Lot on Abbott Road. Party's going to get started probably around 2:30, a few hours before kickoff. And we're going to be partying right up until kickoff and then heading into the stadium. So make sure you come on out. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be, if it's not the loudest that I've ever heard that stadium, I'm going to be really disappointed with Bills Mafia, because I've had some pretty loud games, but you finally get Mahomes in the playoffs on the road, first time in history. I think the Bills are going to make him feel very welcome at the stadium. I'm looking forward to doing it. And somebody said earlier, I think it was Corey, I think post-game's probably going to be shot with me, Paul, and Mario. May have to do that on Monday instead, because we may not have voices left after the football game. So looking forward to it. Make sure you drop us a line. if you're going to be out to the game. If you're not going to be at the game, make sure you tune into Joe while he does his thing on YouTube as well. I think you're getting going at 6 o'clock, Joe.
Yep, I'll be going at 6 o'clock. And since I know that you three won't be able to join me for the post game, it doesn't matter how long I celebrate after the victory either. So if you're just watching, we can all hang out till late at night, because by that time my kids hopefully will be asleep and I can just celebrate all night long. So yeah, Ryan, enjoy your weekend. And again, if Houston wins and then Buffalo wins, I'll be in contact with you, and maybe all four of us can get out for the AFC Championship game. It'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds good, man. How surreal would it be to have the AFC title game in Buffalo after so long? Bring it on, man. Go Houston. Although I picked Baltimore, go Houston, and absolutely go Buffalo.
Absolutely. So for Ryan, for myself, thank you for joining us on this Thursday night. I'm going to be snowed in a little bit tomorrow, and that's okay because the kids will have a good time. So enjoy your weekend, everybody. Have some fun. And don't forget, one thing I'll remind everyone, even if we beat the Chiefs, that's not the end. And we still have a little bit of ways to go. So don't forget about that as well. Save your voice a little bit for the next upcoming weeks, like Stefan Diggs and Alan said, 3 left. So we hope that those 3 go our way, and that we'll be celebrating here next week, all week long on #sports. For Ryan, I'm Joe. Have a great evening. And one more time, go Bills.
Hello, fellow Bills fans. Sean Rogers, realtor and lead of the Mr. Rogers Homes team. Did you know that real estate is one of the best ways